Welcome back, golf fans. The 2022 DFS PGA season is here. I'm Chris Terrell. I'm here with Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports. What we're going to do for the first week, we've got the tournament champions. Instead of going through that small field this week, what I want to do is use that sheet as a tutorial to show some of you that are maybe new to the sheet or just as a refresher, as we did have a nice little break here since the Tour Championship at the end of last season, as well as the fall season. So we're going to get into that. So this will be a lot more as a refresher, like I said, looking at the sheet. So with that, before we get into that sheet, I want to tell you where you can get, if you're new to Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports, maybe new to DFS PGA, want to learn more, I want to tell you a little bit about where you can find our content. So if you head over to patreon.com/Jägerbombs, for $10 a month, you can get access to our DFS PGA package here. We've got stats, current form, course history, odds, DraftKings, and FanDuel information. We've got top bets, prize picks, plays, underdogs, underdog.com bets, putting splits. We got model on there and everything for $10 a month American, $13.50 Canadian will get you access to that PGA package. If you are a DFS player that plays multiple sports, we also cover UFC, NBA, MLB, tennis, NASCAR, League of Legends, NFL, college sports. That's football as well as basketball, soccer, CFL, NHL. You can get all that for $27 Canadian or $20 American per month. And if you sign up for a yearly annual membership on that, you'll also get a 16% discount on that as well. You can also grab a free trial. In the description below, you're going to find a link to our Discord servers. You can jump in there for free. We've got content throughout the week for free given away in our trial members package. We open up our other channels to let you see what we do have to offer in our other sports as well. So make sure to get in there. The Discord link, like I said, is down below as well as pinned to the comments. You can also check us out on social media, twitter.com. That is @Jäger_bombs9. Over on Facebook, you can check us out. That's @Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports. Instagram @Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports. And then our newest venture is over on TikTok @Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports as well. I do a lot of short 15-second, 30-second, 1-minute previews, top plays, top prize picks plays, top props. Just a bunch of short version videos for those of you that maybe aren't into these longer videos and stuff like that. So make sure to check us out there. Give us a like, give us a follow, comment on some of the videos. It really helps the algorithm. Thanks a lot. Let's get into the sheet here. So like I said, we got the tournament champions this week. So we've only got 39 players in the field, but the sheet looks the same each and every week. So I'm going to go over that here a little bit. So this is the main tab here on the bottom. This is what you're going to see when you load the sheet up for the very first time. What you're going to see is the list of players. On the left, you're going to see what country that player's from, as well as their official world golf ranking. You're going to see their odds for that tournament. And then you're going to see full tourney pricing for DraftKings and FanDuel. On Wednesday before each tournament, you will also see the prize picks finishing over-under number. That is the one that I really like to play for PGA. There's also a showdown option, round-by-round option on prize picks as well as underdog fantasy sports over there as well. But what you see, this sheet is mainly for the DraftKings and FanDuel. So you're going to see those price in there. And the next thing you see to the right here is looking at the ranking of odds, DraftKings and FanDuel full tournament, and kind of comparing to see if we can find maybe a mispricing going on in the market on FanDuel or DraftKings. So for instance, if we look at, let's go down and look at Tony Finau and Patrick Reed. So first of all, they are tied for 12th in odds to win the event at 25-1, while they are 16th and 17th in DraftKings and FanDuel pricing. That gives you a +4 and +5. So there's a little bit of value there looking at their pricing compared to their Vegas odds. Now, things are going to be a little bit different week to week, just simply because, like I said, this is a limited field event, a no-cut event. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this salary to odds differential. Another one that stands out, Eric Van Rooyen, +5 on DraftKings, +9 on FanDuel. So that may be a value play down here in the low end that's going to help us play more of a stars and scrubs scenario. Lineup build this week, that's kind of one thing we look at in these no-cut events, because the scrubs really aren't scrubs. It's more of just trying to balance the pricing for DraftKings so that you can actually make a lineup. So the pricing is a little bit different for this, but generally the sheet is going to look the same every week. Then when you move over into the blue, you're going to see course history. adjust that screen just a little bit. So I've got the last 10 years at this course. This is going to change. Some tournaments are new, some venues are new. We're not going to have information on this, but every week it is generally going to be the same. So we have this week, this is the Plantation course at Kapalua. So this is the last 10 years at that course and their finishing position. Average finish last 5 years, average finish last 10 years. Moving over, we've got current form that's in purple. So this is each player's last 10 tournaments. This isn't sorted by the last 10 tournaments on the schedule. This is each player's last 10 tournaments played. 1 through 10. The most recent is 1, and the oldest would be 10. And then we've got average finish over the last 5 and last 10, average DK score in the last 5 and last 10. And then we move into stats in the green. Now, these are the raw stats. And for my sheets, what I look at right now, I've got 70% weight on this new season, the 2021-22 season, with 30% weight on the 2020-2021 season. I always want to get a little bit of weight to keep it long-term, especially earlier in the season, which we are. And as we get closer to the Masters is when I get it up to about 90% new season, 10% old season, and around 95% as we roll into summer. And I do always like to keep, even towards the end of the season, I like to keep that 5% or less, at least something on the season before, just to give us some long-term odds or some long-term trends in terms of stats there. So we've got the strokes gained stats at the top here. Total, tee to green. Tee to green is everything but putting. Then we've got off the tee and approach. And then we've got ball striking. Ball striking is off the tee plus approach. And we've got strokes gained around the green, which is very similar to scrambling, just calculated in a little bit different manner. If you want to learn a little bit more about the strokes gained statistics and why we use them heavily in our models, I know Dane does that as well. We look at that each week to week. Definitely hit us up in the DMs, hit us up in chat. We can definitely go over strokes gain. And if you want and enough people reach out, I will do a whole video on strokes gain if necessary. Then we got strokes gain putting overall. Beside that, I've got strokes gain putting each and every week. The grass is going to be different at each course. So I've got putting splits set up. I've also got, you can check out that down here at the bottom on this other tab over to the right. So we've got bent grass, POA, Bermuda, and a bent POA mix. And this goes back, I'd have to check, but I believe it goes back to Travelers Championship last year. I do have a much bigger database, but I want to keep it, within 50 rounds, somewhere in there for each and every player. As you can see, Sung JM has got more rounds than anyone because he plays every single week. So that's the putting splits. Let's go back to the main tab here. You've got putting average, which is just putts per greens in regulation. I don't use that on my models at all. Strokes gain putting. Again, back to the strokes gain stuff. I use that in my model much more. But if you are using the old school stats, I've got all of them here as well. Putting average, 3-putt avoidance is a good one for, especially this week is one where I will look at 3-putt avoidance a little bit because we do have much larger greens than average, where we do see a 3-putt average that is a little bit higher than tour average. So 3-putt avoidance is a stat that we could definitely work into our model this week. I will show you how to do that. Once we get through all these stats, we've got the off the tee stats with distance, accuracy, good driving percentage. Then we jump into the approach with just greens in regulation, overall proximity, fairway proximity, rough proximity. Then we've got each and individual distances for proximity. Now greens in regulation, just as a simple rule, is just how many greens a player hits and gives them a chance for a birdie. So if it's a par 5, green in regulation would be on and 4 or less. Par 4, on and 3 or less. Par 3, on and 2 or less. So that's just a general how many greens you're hitting. It doesn't say where you're hitting the greens. It doesn't say how close to the pin you're getting. So that's where I use proximity, which tells you how close to the pin you are on your approaches when you hit the green. And then obviously that's the proximity when you're approaching from the fairway, when you're approaching from the rough. So if we get to an event where the fairways are thin, the driving accuracy average year to year is fairly low, rough proximity is something I will work into my models because most of the players are going to be approaching from the rough. So, something like driving distance and rough proximity correlate a little bit together because you're going to get the bombers who aren't really worried about hitting the fairways. They're just worried about getting it down as far as they can and then approaching from the rough from there. Okay, so moving on, then we've got the proximity from each and every distances. So long courses, we're going to use the proximity 175 from 200. Now, this is something I talk about on each and every preview show and the Wednesday shows with Dane as well, is it depends on what player you're using. So I generally don't mix these distances into my models unless it's like the US Open where there's going to be a ton of 200 plus yard approaches. But generally week to week, I look at just overall proximity, or like I said, from fairway or rough proximity, depending on how the course is set up, how big the fairways are. So this week for sure, we've got wider fairways, much wider fairways. So fairway proximity is something I will work into my model. But for distances, it really comes down to player almost every single week. If I'm targeting short players like a Zach Johnson, I want to look at the 175 to 200 and 200 plus yard proximity. If I'm looking at bombers, Bryson, JT, Rory, Dustin Johnson, generally I'm going to be looking at the 125 to 150 range from those guys because they're not getting a lot of approaches from 200 plus. So that's kind of how I use those distances, proximity distances. Then we've got par 3, par 4, and par 5 scoring average. Par 5 birdie or better percentage, which includes eagles in there as well. So that's a good one to look at on courses where the par 5s are quite easy. I don't just want par 5 average. I want par 5 birdie or better because eagles are going to be huge into your scoring as well. Overall scoring average and scoring average before the cut, which is rounds 1 and 2 combined. And then we've got round 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want to break that down, if you're doing research for showdowns, and I will include that into my showdown model as the tournament goes on for rounds 2, 3, and 4 as well. We've got bogey avoidance, birdie or better percentage, scrambling, and sand save percentage in here as well for the around the green stats. Then those stats, all of these stats here that you see in green, are now ranked in orange. The reason we do that is so that we can add a model to this whole thing. So each of those stats, like I said, is ranked from 1 to however many players are in the field. The players that don't have stats generated on the PGA Tour are just going to have it doesn't happen this week, but if there's 155 players and only 120 have stats, I'm just going to be ranking them 155. It kind of throws out the model a little bit. There's really no other way to do it for players that don't generate because the stats do come from PGA Tour. So if they don't qualify for stats on tour, unfortunately, they're not going to have a stats ranking. Generally, we're not going to be targeting those players anyway. Certain instances where we will be, and that's where we will kind of inform you in chat, European Tour stats, that sort of thing, where those players come from. So from there, once this is all ranked, I go ahead every week and I put together my model. So this week I'm looking heavily at strokes gained approach because the fairways are very wide. For proximity, I'm actually going to change it up to fairway proximity because of said fairways wide. There's not going to be a lot of shots coming from the rough, so I want to know how players are doing from how close they're getting the ball to the hole when they're approaching from the fairway. So altogether, we've got about 40% weight on approach shot just right there, 20% weight on the par 4s, 10% on the par 4 birdie or better, and 30% on birdie or better percentage. Pretty simple model this week. Sometimes I'll throw in some other stuff, but this week I'm keeping it pretty simple. This is a birdie fest. If we go look at, now I'll kind of move on doing research. I got course history here, shows the last 10 years, all the players on the leaderboard here. As you can see, the scoring is very, very low, hits minus 20 or better. So this is why I have a fairly simple model looking at approach and scoring almost the entire stats model. You can take a look at the course here, kind of see a breakdown of all the holes, lengths, green size, green grass type, and last 5 years difficulty ranks. And if there's a cut, I also show the cut lines for the last 5 years. You can check that data out there. You can see player statistics for the last 5 years. And then at the bottom here, it shows the averages for those players. So as you can see, it's almost 80% driving accuracy average for the last 5 years at Kapalua for the Tournament of Champions, almost 75% greens in regulation. So this is why I'm looking at fairway proximity to give me just a little bit more edge of guys that are going to be hitting, getting it closer to the pin on average to give themselves more birdie chances, because you're going to need a lot of birdies. On average, you're going to need about 20 birdies is what the field puts out. But to be at the top of the leaderboard, you're going to need somewhere 25 to 30 probably to contend come Sunday. So moving back to the sheet here, once we've got that model, we've got the overall model now. So this is the stats weighted model here. This is now rankings of the stats model. This is a ranking of the course history, which we looked at over here in blue. We've got the odds ranking for outright win. We've got the average finish, last 5 and last 10, which is current form. And then also, if you're playing DK more, depending on how you're doing your research, this is mostly for DK. So I put a lot more weight on the actual DK points average over the last 5, because there are players who do finish higher on the leaderboard that just don't score as well from DraftKings. Sometimes you see a player finish outside the top 20 who outscores on DraftKings a player that finishes maybe T15, T12, just because he's getting a lot more birdies and bogeys versus the other guy who's probably just putting together a ton of pars. So that's why I factor in a little bit more the average DraftKings scoring into my model. Adds up to 100, gives us a number, and then I rank that, and that is the overall ranking this week for just the model. Not my own personal preference, but rather how the model puts it together, looking at all of those factors right there. And you can change that around. To change that around, all you need to do is if you go up to the top here and you click on File, you click Make a Copy, make your own copy, click OK. You're going to get another copy. You're now going to be able to edit your own copy. So you can come over here and you can start changing the numbers. So if you maybe only want 20 on strokes gained approach, 10 on strokes gained off the tee, or maybe you want to here you want some distance built in, you can do that. That's going to change the rankings for the stats model. And then if you feel that stats, you maybe want to build a model that is built around 60% stats and 40% draft, or let's just say 60% stats, 30% odds, and 10% current form on DK, you can do that as well. So it just kind of matters on how you want to build it, and it's going to change your rankings at the end of doing that. Let's go back and reset all this. So that is how you do that. If you want some more help with that and how to set up your own sheet, how to adjust the rankings and stuff like that, definitely hit me up. I can help you there. Another research tool, before I go over my picks here, actually, while we're on this page, green, anything you see in green here on the player names, that is going to be a core play for me. Generally, I'm going to have, if I'm building a 20 max, I'm probably going to have 50 to 60% of the players that are in green. On a normal event, I'm probably going to have 2 from each price range. So like usually the top range, we have about 10, 12 players. I want to have 2. And then we got the mid 7 to 8K range. I'm going to have like 2 core plays, and then 2 core plays, 2 to 3 core plays in the 7K range and below as well. Those are going to be the players that I'm building around each and every week. I usually want somewhere in the range of 5 to 8 of those players, sometimes up to 10, depends on the tournament, depends on how many lineups I'm building, but generally it's going to be for 20 max. Blue are going to be the secondary plays for me, and if you're playing cash lineups, I usually try and build around the green plays for the most part. There's going to be enough of them where you can do that. If you are just going off my picks, definitely throw in your own picks here, but green are going to be my core plays, blue are secondary, and then yellow down here are value plays that I like. Usually going to have all the plays in yellow. I'm going to have equal exposure across my, let's say, a 20 max. If there are any that I prefer over one another, it's just going to be in green. And if there's someone that I think is going to be GPP only, a value play that I wouldn't consider in cash games, he will be blue. So keep that in mind. Again, if you want to learn more about that, hit me up in chat. So that covers the main sheet here. And then what I do with these plays is I have the rank tab. These are my top 15 players in my player pool. The reason I've got it at 15 is because for 20 max, I try and keep my player pool at 15, sometimes 18 max, but 15 is kind of the target number that I'm going for this season. So I'm going to have 15 players listed here all the way. They are sorted by points per dollar rankings and exposure that I will have in my tournaments. And then I've just got some notes here, things that stand out to me, why I'm using them will be here to the right. As for banking, for betting, prize picks, underdog, fantasy sports, I'm going to have my plays here, prize picks, full tourney plays. So it's going to be, I will bring it up and just kind of show you what that looks like on prize picks. So if we go over to PGA, once we're here, we get the list of players and their over under for the tournament. So if you go under on Justin Thomas 7.5, that means he's going to finish 7th or better in the tournament. Morikawa, he's going to finish 9th or better, or over, he's going to finish 10th or worse, 8th or worse. That I really like playing these props. It's a full tournament prop, and I like to use my sheet, the rankings, as well as looking at form, looking at course history, looking at the odds, and then I go into player props on the odds websites, and I like to look at top 10, top 20 odds, and just kind of pick out and see if we can find some props that are maybe a little bit out that we can take advantage of on a week-to-week basis. And the thing I like about prize picks is if we go, I love Justin Thomas this week, as you can see on the sheet already. I do like Schauffele to get a top 10. Both of them are really good here. They're really good at no-cut events, and they're just they're just really good players. So let's just say we go with 2. What I like to do if I'm just playing 2 picks is a power play, means both have to get right, but you 3x your bet. So $20 turns into 60 if you just pick 2 and you get them right. If you add in a third, let's just go Patrick Cantlay, top 10. I know he's got some good top 10 odds here. Actually, I'm going to go Tony Finau here. We'll go under on him, get into 15th or better. If you get 3 now, if you feel really confident you can go power play, you're going to get 5 extra money. That's great. But you can get 1 wrong by going with a flex play. So you can get 2 out of 3. Now you're only going to get 1.25x. You're only going to make 25% of your buy-in on that, but you're still more than doubling up here. If you get all 3 right, you're getting 2.25x. So a little more than double up if you get all 3 right, and you still get a return 25% if you only get 2 of those 3 right. So it's a little bit safer of a way to play. But generally I am more on the power play, all in on those. So those are going to be listed on the sheet, like I said, on Wednesdays. And then my final bet card will be posted here. Bet type, whether we're talking top 10s, top 20s, first round leaders, outright bets, they're all going to be here with the odds and the player. I will also list the sites that I'm betting those players on, where I'm finding those odds, because I use about 3 to 4 different bet books on there as well. Another research tab that I have added this year is the DK trend tab. Unfortunately, this is only for DraftKings players. Just simply because they make it a lot easier to download CSVs and enter the data and build a database, whereas FanDuel makes it almost impossible unless you're kind of connected with FanDuel and able to get all that information. I am not. Most people play in DraftKings anyway. I'm going to try and get this in the future for FanDuel, but right now it is a DraftKings only tool, the DK trend tab. Something I'm adding going forward from the Tournament of Champions all through the 2022 season is adding ownership that we can track week to week as well. So not only are we going to be looking at weekly salary, finish position, DraftKings points, and points per dollar each and every week for the players that are in the field, is what you're going to see on here. And then we've got how many events they've played, wins, top 5s, 10s, 25s, average finish, and average DK. Very similar to what you see on my NASCAR sheets for the trends as well. This is for the 21-22 season only at the moment. The database goes back a lot farther than that, as you can see. But for these tallies, I want to look at current form, and that's going to be changing through the season, probably to last 5 tournaments. Data in here. I'll take suggestions on what you'd like to see on this page to add to it as well. But like I said, I will be adding ownership, GPP and cash game ownership tracking on this sheet as well, so we can track that. I mentioned course history, player stats, putting splits. Now, when it comes to showdowns, something I've always done showdowns. What I've added this year is, or in the 2022 season, you're going to see round 1 showdown pricing, 2, 3, and 4. That's going to be on there just so that we can easily compare maybe some pricing on a player that was maybe expensive round 1 and has trended down while his performances have trended up. That's going to be some advantage spots that I really want to pay attention to for showdowns moving forward, especially if you're playing all 4 rounds. It's kind of like playing DraftKings and FanDuel and find players that are a lot cheaper points per dollar wise, compared to the overall salary cap on one site to the other, and where we can take advantage of that and build lineups a little bit different going off of those few players. We can do the same thing in terms of showdown, looking at round 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to post all rounds salaries this year. And then what you're going to see after each and every round is current place, player score, their score for round 1, 2, 3. Obviously, 4 is not going to be on there because that's the final round of the tournament. We've got total birdies, total eagles, bogeys, double or worse, driving accuracy, greens and regulation for the tournament. And then for DraftKings, we've got the player points for round 1, 2, 3, total points there, and then GPP ownership for rounds 1, 2, and 3 on there as well. And as the tournament goes, this model at the end will be updated as well to add live stats, driving accuracy, GIR, birdies, and bogeys in there as well, so we can start factoring that into the model for showdown. And then for the final round of showdown, which does take into account finishing position, I will be throwing some heavy weight on odds in there as well. So stay tuned for showdown. I'm going to be doing some more videos in terms of showdown and some things that I look at when highlighting my targets. Now, what you're going to see once round 1 is over, I generally only play rounds 2, 3, and 4. I like to get that early data. So what you're going to see here is the highlighted plays. I think what I'm going to do to keep it a little less confusing, is just keep those plays highlighted. Those are the plays that I like for the full tournament before the tournament started. I've got my DFS ranks here. I'm going to add another tab very similar to what you see here, but I'm going to call it showdown ranks, and I'll just change it round 1 showdown ranks, round 2 showdown ranks, round 3 showdown ranks, and so on. I will have 5 to 10 players listed on here that stand out to me, and I'm going to have notes on why I'm targeting them. So make sure to check back for that after round 1, going into round 2, 3, and 4. With that almost covers everything. Like I said, if you have any other questions, things you want me to cover, if I get enough answers or enough questions, I will definitely do some other videos targeting some other stuff. Like I said, strokes gain stats, things like that, how to build your own sheets. But in the meantime, if you have just some, short questions you want to know about the sheet, things I didn't cover, hit me up in Discord, in a DM, or in the PGA Talk channel, and I will help you through those 100%. Thanks for tuning in. And if you want a PGA, if you want access to our PGA content, make sure to head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs for $10 a month, American, $13.50 Canadian. You will get access to this DFS cheat sheet each and every week, our rankings, our top bets, and our PGA Talk channel in chat, which, by the way, is free this week. So make sure to get into that Discord and jump over to that PGA Talk channel and hit up Dane or I in there, and we will definitely help you out and show you how to use the sheet and navigate, and we hope you stick around. Thanks a lot, and good luck this week.